Hello, and welcome to another installment of DeKalb Talks Tourism. We're very excited today to have a special guest, Trey Brantley, who I've known for many years in many different positions. And Trey, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into how we got to know each other.
Currently I'm the Regional Business Development Director for a company called Hotwire Communications, trying to bring high-end, high-quality, concierge-level service, telecom services. So if you think about the two big incumbents in town, give them a better product and excellent customer service, and that's what we do. I also am on the board of the DeKalb Chamber of Commerce, and I am also happen to be on the board of Sports DeKalb right here. So, it kind of goes back to what you were talking about, one of the reasons we've known each other for a long time. Historically, I have been involved in youth sports here in DeKalb County for a lot of years. I was president of TISA, Tucker Youth Soccer Association here. I was on the management committee for GSA at the time while it was Gold Soccer Academy. So got a long history in that, as well as, and I'm sure we'll be talking about some of the other soccer things I've been involved with. But outside of that, just I'm a native Atlantan. I was born at Piedmont Hospital. Go back a long ways. My dad was born at Grady, so I always give him a hard time about being a Grady baby.
I don't think there's many native Atlantans.
There's really not. There's not many of us, and it's one of the conversations that always comes up whenever anybody says, "Oh, you're from here." I am too. Even at the event I was at the other day, where the CEO Stuckey's was here, there was like three people I was talking to, and they were all natives and all said the same thing. I can't believe I've met so many native Atlantans here in this one event, because you normally might meet one,
Right.
but to meet three, it's like, whoa, wait a minute,
So how long do you have to live in Atlanta to consider yourselves to be a native? Not born here, but be a native.
I don't know. I would say that I'm probably more of a purist. So I think you got to be born here to actually be a true native, or at least elementary school. So having been here so long, and I look around, there are people that I consider, Atlantans, even though they may not be native Atlantans. So,
because I will, I guess, always be from West Virginia, but I have been in Atlanta now 12 and a half years, longer than any time in my life other than growing up in West Virginia through college. So it's like this is kind of my new home.
Well, it's my daughter is she was born in China.
Yes.
But she has been here since she was about a year and a half old. Is she a native Atlantan? I don't know. She's certainly not native Chinese, even though she's definitely Chinese. But I think that's kind of an open argument. People can interpret it the way they want to as to what does qualify.
I think she's a native Cincinnati person now.
She lives in Cincinnati only because she's going to the University of Cincinnati. So I'm not sure you'd call her a Cincinnatian, probably just more of a Bearcat.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about, so we started out getting to know each other through TISA.
Yes.
And then we got on with Greg, I guess, from Georgia Soccer, we started working on a soccer complex. And then I guess that was right after we had the Nigerian Olympic soccer team here.
Yeah, but it was actually before that. The idea is that me and a friend were actually having a beer one night over at the local place over here on Main Street, and it came up that there was a new women's soccer league coming out. It was actually getting ready to open in a couple of months for their very first game. And I reached out to them because I wanted to be part of it. And so we started trying to get a women's team here then. And the only reason we couldn't make it, we were about 30 days later, we'd have been one of the initial teams in the NWSL.
Wow.
So after that, we continued to work hard to try to get an Atlanta team for the NWSL. The problems that we ran into there were that they really wanted Arthur to do it. And I'm not Arthur Blank. So we tried for years, and finally we wound up having to give up that. But during that time, while we were trying to do that, someone introduced me to Greg Griffith, who was at the time the president and executive director of Georgia Soccer. And he actually introduced me to the president of what was then the Silverback soccer team.
Ah.
And we wound up meeting for lunch one day and talking about, and we got real serious about buying the Silverbacks, not the park, the team itself.
Golly.
And so we got really, really, really deep there. And that was a lot of the times when you and I started talking a lot together. I was still president of TISA at the time. And so as we moved through that, we wound up walking away from buying the Silverbacks. The day after we walked away from buying the Silverbacks, the NASL crashed. So some people may blame us, some people may not blame us, but I don't blame us, because if we were the only thing holding it together, it wasn't going to last anyway.
Right.
One team and one new surge of investment is not going to change a league that's having that kind of trouble. So at that point, you would ask me to consider joining the board for Sports DeKalb, which I did, and I did join. And basically, ever since then, we've been kind of working together on different things, trying to get projects going here in town. And, it's kind of, I guess the rest is history.
So where are you looking at right now with the team? Did it move forward?
We had looked at multiple sites. We actually wound up, when the NASL crashed, I did not want to be part of the existing leagues. I didn't like the way they were. I didn't like the way they were structured. I'm very much a pro-rel kind of guy. So when we couldn't do that, I hooked up with some people out of Chicago, and we were trying to create a new league. We lost one of the founders of it, and it wound up floundering a bit. And then we worked with the new guys, a company called Club 9 with a guy named John Pruch, and they were still trying to put the league together. And us and the San Diego team actually did a lot to try to bring this back together. We sacrificed our general counsel to move over into this non-existent league.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and they sacrificed their president to move over into the new league. And so together they all worked, and we actually got sanctioned as a Division III professional league, NISA, the National Independent Soccer Association. So with that, we actually started playing. We played the first season, but we never had a good place to play. And right. So that was the reason that we parked the team and parked the effort until we could figure something out. As stadiums went, at the time, Silverbacks Park was not interested in having professional teams there. They were doing very successful with the adult leagues, and they were doing very, very well. And so they weren't interested in sacrificing that for the professional teams. I certainly understood that. So we start looking at other options. And one of the options that came up, and you and I worked tremendously out there to try to get the Stonecrest thing going, working with some other business leaders around town to try to get the Stonecrest project going. And it kept staggering. I do have to, with hindsight being everything that it is, I want to qualify. I was the team. I was not part of that effort. So so as we went through that thing started to go south, and we realized, okay, well, this isn't going to happen. Not even the small stadium, nothing out there kind of came to fruition. But then we started looking at other stuff, and the city of Tucker stepped up, and they were talking to us about a facility here in the city of Tucker, which was great because it was going to fit everything that we were looking for.
We actually were trying to put together the soccer, professional rugby, and professional lacrosse at that particular moment.
At that time, in fact, we were all at that initial meeting out there at Fitzgerald Park.
Yep.
And we were all out there, and we were looking at how that could go. And I personally live in the city of Tucker, so that was going to be a great thing, and I thought would be a fantastic thing for the city across the board. And about that time, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And COVID changed the rules on a lot of things. And one of the big problems that it had with us was it drove up the cost of the stadium.
Right.
And it drove it out of the budget of what the city had allocated to be able to do with it. They still own the land, so it may still be a possible, if not feasible, if it's at least possible. So, they came to us and were talking to us about contributing some of the cash, and we wanted to be a tenant.
Right.
We really didn't want to be an owner. So we tried to work with the city to do a lot of different things, but it just never came to pass. And so the teams remain parked. And I still talk. I'm still working with the guys over at NISA, and would love to do a team here, and we want to do a team here. And recently, it's been brought to our attention that Silverbacks is now open to the idea of professional sports there.
Yeah, because it's pretty cool. We're already one of the host sponsors of the Atlanta Hustle, the professional ultimate frisbee team.
Mm-hmm.
We are working and trying to facilitate the ATL rugby professional team with the Silverbacks. And then we have, it's not professional, but we have a high-level college lacrosse championship in February where we have the University of Massachusetts and Army West Point game coming in, and they're interested in actually doing like men and women's each year. So there's a lot of high-level pieces going to Silverbacks. It'd be quite interesting if we make full circle and come back to where the team originated for a new professional home for the team.
I think it'd be great. Again, I live in DeKalb, so I really would like to have the team's home here in my home county. Now, admittedly, if going back to my original thing of you got to be a native, you got to be born there. I was born in Fulton County because I was born at Piedmont, but I think we're close enough here that I can claim myself.
I think so.
To be DeKalb.
Now, can you divulge? I know we've talked many names. Did you all finalize a name for the men's team?
We didn't. The first season that came out, it was Atlanta SC, but that was really more of a placeholder because we never could come up with a name. The women's team we were going to call the Atlanta Vibe. I actually coincidentally released that name to someone else this morning. That particular name was creating all kinds of problems. Just from a political standpoint, a lot of people didn't like the name. They thought it was, won't go into the reasons, but they really was causing some pain. And so that one I've released. But when we first started out on the women's thing, this is actually kind of a funny story. We actually went into works with a gentleman by the name of Gareth O'Sullivan, who was the head coach of the women's team down at Clayton State. And he was working with us very closely to allow us to use their stadium to do some, not professional games, but to kind of have a second team that was down there. We didn't have the first team. And so we thought, okay, well, let's just go ahead and do the second one. And we came up with a name, and it was before anything else had come out. And we had actually gone out, and now we've got ourselves a small state. This was just going to literally be an amateur team that was just kind of one level down from professional. But we actually came up with a name and went out, sold some sponsorships and whatnot under the name of Atlanta United.
Oh, wow.
A few months later, there was a big professional team in town that announced their new name as the Atlanta United. So I actually went over there and met with them. Super nice guys over there. I mean, really, really, really super nice guys. And I was like, hey, I have no desire for any problems here. I will crash everything right now, and I'll do nothing. And I'll have nothing to do with this because they were nice guys, not to mention they could buy me 100 times over. Yeah. So I had no chance of winning anything. And but also I really like them. And I hate having non-sports things involved in sports. And that was going to be a huge non-sports things involved in the sports team. So I let that go and walked away from it, happily walked away from it. I mean, So, but I just thought it's always cracked me up that that was the name that I chose for that, and then they come out and they do that one. So, but it worked out. We're still moving forward. But no, we don't have a name. So anybody that wants to submit a name, they can submit them here. They'll certainly get to me, and because we're looking for what we're going to call this thing.
That'd be an interesting competition.
Yeah, they always are.
Yeah.
They always are. And coming up with the finalists for even a final vote to come across is actually a lot of fun. And we saw that. We saw that through the Atlanta United. We saw that through a couple of the teams, and a lot of the NISA when they were coming out with the teams, because they were all for the most part new teams. The competitions that went on about the names and coming up with them, and Atlanta has such a rich culture and such a rich heritage. There's so many names that could come out. There was a lot of talk when we were looking at joining the NASL. And what we would name the team there. And there was actually a pretty large push with us internally for the Atlanta Chiefs and to bring the Chiefs back.
Yeah, that was an historic name, right?
It was, and that was the original soccer team in Atlanta. And it just so happened that the NASL, who we were working with, owned the name.
I forgot about that.
So we were pushing that pretty hard. There was also we had learned there was a lot of Native American heritage out at Stonecrest. So if we were going to play there, there was all of these great things that were going to tie that in. And we had held a couple of meetings with a couple of the tribes that are out that way, and there really wasn't any pushback on it from them. It was actually a lot of other people that had a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
And what we wound up doing, we walked away from it really. Again, it goes back to the sports is supposed to be sports and it's supposed to be fun, and so we want our teams and we wanted our games to be about the game, and frankly about winning the game, and we didn't want it to be about other stuff, and that's what that was going to become. Right. It was going to become about the name.
So you mentioned you relinquished the Atlanta Vibe. Are they looking at doing a women's team? Why would they want the name?
No, they wanted the name because they thought Atlanta Vibe was such a cool name.
Oh, okay, just for general use.
It was a music deal that was wanting to come out with it they loved the name, and so yeah, that went back over. So hopefully it gets used, because I think it is just a absolute fantastic name.
Oh, I love the name, but I could see it being for music. It fits very well as well.
Yeah.
So you remember when we had the Nigerian Olympic soccer team here?
Oh yes, that was a roller coaster. How much you want to go into that?
Oh, I just every now and then I start thinking about that. When I was out at Silverbacks this weekend, I started thinking about when we did that exhibition game and bringing them in and then their roller coaster ride to get to Brazil.
That was a crazy thing. I know at Tysa we were planning to put up a lot of money towards that, and but nobody could give us any assurance that the team was even going to show up.
Yeah, it was one of those. Even though we were working closely with the organizing group, you still were kind of like, are they going to make it? And boy, when they did, it was very cool. But it was a roller coaster from beginning to end, and because I still actually have a signed soccer ball in the office from the coach.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was interesting.
They were some great guys. I enjoyed meeting them and hanging out with them, and was hoping that they would do very well in the Olympics, and obviously was hoping USA would take gold, but that did not happen. But no, that was an interesting time, and I felt like a bad guy in that one, because we had the club. We had all those kids excited about the team that was coming in and that Tice was going to participate. And then I got nervous. And, it's when you're running a youth club like that, it's not your money. Right. I don't even consider it the parents' money. It's the kids' money. And that's what you do with it. And you do everything you can to help promote the kids. And that was going to be such a great event. But when we couldn't even have the assurance that they were going to be there, but the money was going to be gone, I backed out. It was me. It was my call. I did it. I caught a little flack internally as well. I think it was the right call then. I still think it was the right call. And it's when you talk about the game that did take place, but wound up taking place later because it was rained out when it was, and so we were going to have. It was not going to work out well for the club. So I think we were right to save the kids money, and but I'm also glad that they were able to come. They were able to get the game off, and that Delta was kind enough to give them a ride to Brazil in the 11th hour.
In the end, it was a roller coaster, but it was something that I talk about to this day, hosting the Nigerian Olympic team. Their escapades getting to the game, getting there an hour before the game, winning the game. So, I mean, just being able to say we had the Nigerian Olympic team practicing for a month in DeKalb County, and we hosted them. We got them here. So, either way, it's very cool bragging rights. And everything, there's always obstacles.
There is, and we as Discover DeKalb, Sports DeKalb, were able to overcome the obstacles of my backing out. We were able to overcome it, and it was a great event. It was an absolute great event.
But that kind of led from there. We went into literally looking at a 12-field soccer complex that very quickly, before we even got the study done, went from 12 to 19 fields. I remember that.
Yes.
And then we've been trying ever since to get a sportsplex built in DeKalb. But we're maximizing what we've got. We've got some great facilities dealing with soccer to football to swimming to we just had a huge meeting yesterday with boxing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we have a lot of different sports that we can do very well in DeKalb, and we're just going to keep pushing for the sportsplex and the convention center.
We'll get this. I think we will ultimately get the sportsplex. It's just such a perfect place.
Right.
And even when we did the for back then when we did the economic impact study, it just generated so much revenue for the area that there's just no reason for it not to happen. It's a shame it didn't happen at Stonecrest, but it can happen somewhere. And here Atlanta being such a hub, that was one of the things that we kept talking about was the youth tournaments and bringing in the youth tournaments.
Right.
And even when I was with TISA and we were doing the youth tournaments, it was always about how many teams can we get to come in for this thing? Let's bring in teams from Tennessee. Let's bring in teams from Alabama, from Florida. Try to get these guys in here. And again, it goes back to tourism and tourism dollars. It's even though it's a kid sport, it's still about the money. I mean, I hate to say it, but it is.
Right.
So bringing in the tourism into DeKalb County for these youth tournaments, be it soccer tournaments or lacrosse tournaments or whatever, they're all the same. They're all trying to get people to come in. And it's from the operation standpoint, it's a large part about the money, but it's also about the event. Right. The kids, the experience, the friends that they make. My niece went all the way through from barely walking, playing soccer to being very successful at the collegiate level, playing, and she had friends to this day that all came from playing soccer, be it in her little kid league where they're almost I think they're called tiny tykes or tiny tots or something like that, all the way up through the college level, and being able to look back and see the friends that she has, I think that's a lot of it. Now my daughter played, but I think she quit when she discovered boys. But even she's got friends. And from a parent standpoint, I still to this day go and have lunch or have dinner or something with parents of her old teammates. So it's the overall experience is phenomenal, but it really does create such a great economic atmosphere.
Yeah, we definitely love sports. I mean, the number of rooms, the number of people, the fact that, and the thing about sports is too, when they go out and hit the restaurants, everybody knows. That's what's so cool. Like when you have a convention, a lot of times no one really knows they're there. Downtown Atlanta, a little different, but forever in DeKalb. But when you have a sports team, the restaurants know, the gas stations know, the retail know, the hotels know. So it's very cool, and it's good because it's good for the economy. It's good for the community. it's good for the people because then they have something to go watch or they have an opportunity to play.
Yeah, and to that point, and I have to go back to some of my Tyson days, and we had a big tournament there, and we still have it. I'm not involved with the club anymore, but the club still has the tournament. It's the Triumph Cup. It happens
Right.
the weekend before Thanksgiving. We actually have to give the restaurants all around both parks that we kind of deal with notice that this tournament's coming, because they do. You bring in thousands of kids, and they all want to eat lunch, and they all want to go out. And
Right.
most of them aren't 5 minutes from home. Most of them are from elsewhere, even if they're from South Georgia or South Atlanta or something. They're typically from somewhere else. So it's all going out to eat.
Right.
Where are they going? Well, they're going to these restaurants. And so, a lot of them would actually give us coupons and stuff to throw in the tournament bag, so that
Right.
when somebody checks in, you hand them a tournament bag, and there is coupons for people to use. So I just think that experience overall is phenomenal across the board, even for the restaurants, because the restaurants even seem to have fun with it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, to close this out, do you have any interesting story to tell?
I think I've told all my interesting stories.
Oh, man, you gotta have something in here. Well, what do you think? So we're going to look at having a meeting with the Silverbacks and see if we can get a professional team here.
Yeah, I am. I was telling one of your associates here a few minutes ago. I have a planned meeting with the partnership week after next.
Okay.
The key about that, and the reason that it's such a big deal, because you say, how much can it cost to run these small teams? Well, it does cost a bit, but that's actually less of the issue. NISA was created to be pro-rel, which I talked about a little bit earlier. We always want to be promotion relegation. And so you create more teams, and as you create the additional leagues that go with it, they move up in stature. So as you go from Division 3, which I think requires a $5 million net worth owner, to Division 2, which I'm guessing at this point, because it's been a while since I've looked. But it was Division 2. I think it's $20 million. And to be a Division 1 owner, your ownership net worth has to be over $70 million. So, not being in that $70 million club myself, I have to have partners that do qualify, because the whole goal is to create this promotion relegation world. And for us to be able to do that, I feel the team ownership needs to be that can qualify for D1, and therefore we need to have an ownership group that is 70 million plus. And that's why, I don't just say, oh, well, let's go out here, $5 million owner, $10 million owner. Okay, we can do that.
Right.
But I've got to put together these partners to make sure that we can actually qualify for D1. Otherwise, we're just always going to be exactly what we are. And I really want to grow. So that's why I'm putting together the stuff, but putting together the partners and making sure that everybody's still on board to move forward and get this thing to where we can build it and get it kind of ridiculous.
Well, I'm excited for that ride. Want to be a part of it any way we can. And Trey, I want to thank you for coming on our show. You're welcome anytime, especially when we have big news. We need to bring you back.
Hopefully I'll be back. I mean, it's I love coming here. I love doing this, and I love everybody in this building. So Discover DeKalb, Sports DeKalb has been a great part of my life for the last, I don't even know what it is now, but it's been a lot of years.
Wow.
Been a lot of years. So I'll look forward to coming back, and I'll come back with some news, I'm sure.
Sounds good. Thanks, Trey. Thank you all for joining us once again on our podcast.